Good morning, everyone. In the previous session of Human Resource Management, I was explaining about the selection procedure. What are the various steps involved in the process of selection? There are various number of steps. An organization create this selection procedure completely basing on the requirement of the organization and the requirement of the job. So the sequence of these steps, what are the steps they are going to include? If they want to exclude some of the steps, that actually depends upon the organization. According to their requirement, they create the selection procedure. Okay. In this session, I'm going to explain the remaining portion of the selection procedure, or the topic selection function. So the remaining portions, in the remaining portions, we have first of all the factors which affect the selection decision, the decision taken regarding the selection procedure. So first I am going to explain all the factors which affect the decision regarding the selection function. Then I am going to explain how this selection is important from the organizational point of view, the importance of the selection function. And then I am going to explain features of a good selection process, which means what kind of features a selection procedure must have in it so that it can be more effective. Effective in what sense? Effective in finding the most suitable candidate for the job. So these three topics of selection I am going to explain today. Okay, so let's begin the session with the factors affecting selection or factors affecting selection decision. So what is the basic objective of selection? Selection function is basically conducted to eliminate all the applicants who are not suitable or who cannot meet the requirement of the job as well as the requirement of the organization. So those candidates need to be rejected. So we can also say that selection function is it's kind of a negative function, because it leads to rejection of a large number of candidates and selection of only few candidates. So in this elimination, the organization need to focus on choosing, in selecting all those tests and interview which can actually reveal the potentials, the capabilities and talents of every candidate, so that they can select the best and reject the remaining who may not be suitable for the job or who may not fulfill the certain criteria and requirement of the organization. Now this selection procedure needs to be prepared very carefully. So it is also affected by various factors. Now these factors have to be given proper importance from the organization, from the management, so that they can create a selection procedure which will be more effective. So there are around 4 factors which affect the selection procedure. The first one, as you all can see on the screen, is the profile matching. Second one is the organizational and social environment. Third one is successive hurdles. And the fourth one is multiple correlation. So these are the 4 factors which has influence over the decision regarding selection function. Okay. So what is, first of all, the first point is profile matching. So what is profile matching? So first of all, here we have to match the profile of the candidate with the job profile, or the specification of a candidate with the job specification. Specification of a candidate means the qualification, the experience, the potential, the attitude, personality, each and every aspect of a candidate. So we have to compare, we have to match that. So how the organization is supposed to identify or reveal the true potential of the candidate and then match it with the job specification? So this is simply done by creating a standard score. So standard score is basically the scores obtained by the existing employees from the different types of tests and interviews which they have appeared. So the existing candidates would go through a selection procedure during their selection time, and they would go through various types of tests and interviews, and those scores will be kept within the organization to set a standard. So when new applicants apply for the job, they compare the scores of the new applicants with the existing employee scores, what they have scored in their selection procedure. So the scores obtained by the existing employees would be considered as the standard score, and whatever score the applicant has obtained through the various tests and interviews, both will be compared. Now if the applicant has scored more than the standard score, then the employee can be considered suitable for the job. And if the applicant score is less than the standard score, then it simply reveals that the person is not suitable for that job. So this comparison of standard score and applicant score actually decide whether the candidate would be suitable for the job or not. It simply means the success and failure of the candidate, whether the candidate will get a job in the organization or the candidate would be rejected by the organization. So that is called profile matching. So this also plays a major role in deciding the procedure of selection, because they have to select the types of tests and interviews which can reveal the true potential of the candidate. So this plays a major role in the selection function. Okay. The next point is organizational and social environment. Now, there is always a chance that one candidate may be suitable for the job, may be efficient for the job. He or she may have all the qualifications, all the experience which is required to do a particular job. But the personality, the attitude, the behavior may not be suitable for the organizational or the social environment. So what will happen if the organization appoints such person? That person won't be able to adjust in the organizational environment, which will lead to various other problems, which will hamper his or her own performance, which will this will create also conflict between the new candidate, new employee and the others. So while selecting someone, it is also very necessary to see whether the person whom the whether the person whom the organization is going to select is compatible with the organizational and social climate or the environment. If the person has a completely different opinion, completely different attitude and personality, which may not be the part of the organizational environment, then those candidates have to be rejected, because they may prove themselves successful in a different organization with different kind of working environment, but that kind of person may not be suitable in our organization, because there is a variation between the organizational climate and the personality of the candidate. So that needs to be given prior importance. Okay. So the candidate specification should also be matched with the organizational and social environment. So in profile matching, what we were doing, we were simply matching the scores of the candidate with our existing employee scores. So that will actually prove whether the candidate is suitable to perform a particular job or not. But this will actually prove that the candidate is actually suitable for working within a particular organization or not, and that is also very important. So this is another factor which influence the selection procedure or the selection function. Next one is successive hurdles. So hurdles actually represent each and every stage of selection. So what happens in the selection procedure? Every candidate, in order to get a job, the candidate needs to pass in each and every stage of selection. If the candidate's application is suitable, if the candidate's application fills all the criteria of the organization, then the candidate will move forward to the next round. If the candidate becomes successful in the next round, then the candidate will move forward to the third round. So selection is a step-by-step procedure. So every candidate needs to cross each and every hurdle or each and every stage of selection. So if a candidate does not pass in one of the selection stage, then the candidate would be rejected. So that is called successive hurdles. It is very necessary for screening all the candidates, finding the best candidate out of the total large number of candidates. Now, in this diagram, you can clearly see the hurdles. First of all, candidates will apply for the job in the application form. Then if the application form is selected, then they will go to the next stage, that is the written examination. They have to appear the written examination. If they pass in that examination, they will move forward to preliminary interview. So these arrows actually shows that each candidate have to pass in each and every stage of the selection, and at last they will get the job, they will get the employment after the final decision taken by the line manager. So this is the actually basic process of the selection, or we can say this is the actual process of the selection. So these are the hurdles which each and every employee, each and every candidate needs to pass in order to get a job. So this is the successive hurdle. Okay. Now come to the last factor which affect the selection decision. Multiple correlation. It simply means that the deficiency in one factor or one stage of the selection procedure can be counterbalanced by another procedure or another stage. For example, if some of the tests are not bringing out the real qualities of the candidates, then we can make the interview process more stronger, more difficult, so that we can find out the true potential, the true qualities of the candidate. So it simply means that it can basically be counterbalanced by putting or adding some new types of interviews or new types of tests. Okay. If one stage is not that effective in screening the candidate, they can make another stage little bit more difficult. That is called multiple correlation, and each and every candidate needs to go through all these stages. They have to pass all these hurdles in order to get a job in the organization. So we can say the limitation of one stage can be overcome by putting something extra in the next stage. Okay. So these are the four factors which has some kind of influence and which affect the selection function. Okay. The next one is the importance of selection. Now, to what extent selection is important from the organizational point of view? Why selection is so important? So the first point here says that procurement of suitable candidate is possible. So what is the basic objective of selection? Is to find out the best out of the large number of people who have applied for the job. It is very simple. So the selection procedure actually helps the organization to select the best candidate to who is suitable to do the job, and who is also suitable according to the organizational and social environment. So that's why selection is very important. It helps the organization to select the best candidate to do the job. And while doing the job, the candidate would become more and more successful. So it's not just about doing the job. It's about doing the job in an efficient and effective manner, so that that candidate can be proved to be very important from the organizational point of view. Okay. So first of all, the why a selection is so important, because it helps the organization to find out and select the best candidate for doing a particular job. Okay. The next importance is good selection reduces the cost of training and development. So if the organization selects efficient candidates who are smart, who are intelligent, who easily understand the technicality of the job, who do not take much time in understanding the different aspects of the job, the techniques related to the job, what are the methods to be followed for doing the job. So if smart and good and talented candidates are selected, then the cost of training and development would be reduced, because they can learn many things within a limited amount of time. So timing will be less, less effort is needed for preparation of training and development program, and these candidates would spend less time in training and more time in doing their job. So ultimately the cost of training and development would be reduced. So a good selection procedure would help the organization to select efficient and talented candidates who would learn everything in a limited amount of time, and that would lead to reduction in cost of training and development. Okay. The next point is proper selection resolves personnel problems. So first of all, what is personnel problems here? So personnel problem here are the basic problems which is faced by the HR department or the personnel department because of the employees. So what are these problems? Absenteeisms, labor turnover, and monotony in doing the same kind of job over and over again, which leads to which makes the employees which makes the job very boring for the employees. So that reduces the performance level of the employees. So these are the basic personnel problems. How these personnel problems can be resolved with a proper selection procedure? It simply means that when the organization selects the best candidate, the candidate is mature enough, is talented enough to understand the seriousness of his or her job. He or she can understand what kind of contribution they give to the organization, and they work very hard. They want to get involved in the organization and do their job. So this leads to job satisfaction. They get job satisfaction, and which leads to less absenteeism. They do not remain absent. They do not leave the organization because they get job satisfaction in the job. They get various opportunities to develop themselves, to improve themselves, and this reduces the boredom of doing one kind of job again and again. So a good selection procedure leads to selection of the right kind of candidate, which resolves many of the personnel problems. Personnel problems means problems of the HR department or the personnel department. That is called absenteeism, even labor turnover, or people leaving the job because of unnecessary and small issues. So these situations can be easily resolved, or in many cases this situation won't even arise because the employees are very much satisfied with the job that they are doing. Okay. Now let us discuss the last point of, or the last topic of today's session. What are the features of a good selection procedure? Now these are the features which makes a selection procedure more and more effective, and which leads to the selection of the right kind of candidate for the job. Okay. So the first point here says that a selection process is an employment of workers through which a contractual relationship between employees and employer is established. So it simply means that a selection is a procedure which creates a relationship between employee and employer, contractual relationship. So everything needs to be mentioned in proper agreement. What kind of job the worker or the employee is supposed to do, what are the benefits, salary, and everything the company is supposed to give the employee, and other related things. So it creates employment for the worker, and creates a healthy relationship, a contractual relationship between the employees and the employers. Okay. The next point here says that the selection process should avoid complex procedures and processes that will confuse and alienate potential candidates. So the second feature which is essential, which explains that the selection procedure needs to be less complicated. If it is more complicated, the candidates first of all won't understand about the selection procedure. They would keep failing in the different stages of the selection procedure, and good and potential candidates would alienate here means they won't be able to relate with the procedure of selection. So whatever procedure is selected, whatever methods, whatever types of tests and interviews are selected or decided to be used in the selection procedure, they need to be very clear. They need to be less complex. It needs to be very effective, but at the same time it should not be more complicated. It simply means that what kind of quality that we see, that we want from the applicant, in order to reveal those qualities, only certain types of test and interviews needs to be done. So unnecessary including excessive number of tests, excessive number of stages is not at all required. It will make the process more and more complicated. The candidates would be confused why they are going through so many stages, why they are going through so many tests. It is not even relevant to the job. So that will create many problems, and the company will lose an opportunity to find out the best candidate from the large number of candidates who have applied for the job. So it simply means that a selection process, in order to make a selection process effective, it needs to be less complicated. Even if more steps are involved, it needs to be very understandable. It needs to be less confusing from the candidate's point of view. Okay. The next one here says that the selection process involves rejecting a large number of underqualified candidates, hence it is regarded as a negative process. So first of all, large number of candidates will be rejected in the selection process. Suppose an organization has only 100 positions to fill up. Thousands of candidates are going to apply for the job. So obviously they are going to appoint only 100. Other remaining candidates would be rejected. So selection must involve rejecting large number of candidates and selecting only those who consider to be suitable for the job. So the people who do not fit into the basic criteria for the job, who do not have the basic qualities required to do the job, they need to be rejected in large number. Okay. The next feature which is essential here says that selection process eliminates unsuitable and misfit candidates. That ensures that the most competent and qualified candidates will enter into the organization. So after rejecting those candidates uh, in large number who does not even possess the basic criteria for the job, the next stage is rejection of the candidates who are not suitable or who do not fit into the organizational and social environment. So those candidates needs to be rejected. So in this stage, all the candidates needs, to some extent, they are suitable. Someone is more qualified, more suitable than the other one. So the candidates who are considered, who have proved themselves to be more and more suitable for the job, those candidates only would be selected for the next stage, and other candidates who are unsuitable would be rejected. It will eliminate all the unsuitable and the candidates who does not fit into the organizational structure. So those candidates would be rejected, and the best candidate only will enter into the organization. The selection procedure needs to make this sure that only the unsuitable candidates are rejected and suitable candidates are selected. Okay. So effective and efficient an effective selection procedure must have these qualities. Okay. The next point here says that a selection procedure is a complex process, as all have to pass a number of hurdles. So even if the selection procedure includes a very less complicated test, very simple test, but inclusion of excessive number of tests and interviews makes the process itself very complex. A candidate needs to go through around 10 types of tests, 5 types of interviews, so that makes it little bit difficult for the candidate. And it is also very necessary because the organization is investing time and money to find out the best person. So the best person need to pass all those tests and all those interviews to get a job in the organization. So that is very important. So making a procedure complex by adding more number of tests is not that kind of, we can say it is kind of necessary for the selection process. But including unnecessary types of test and interview which are not relevant to the job, those things must be avoided. So it may be complex procedure, but it has to be represented in a simple manner so that the candidates won't feel uncomfortable, won't be confused. Okay. And the last feature that a selection procedure must have is monitor your selection systems ongoing for process enhancement, examining pass rate, efficiency, accuracy, and fairness. So we have created a selection procedure. Now we need to analyze and we need to evaluate the system again and again so that necessary improvements can be done. So we have to find out the passing rate. If the passing rate is very low, and if it is revealed that the candidates who have applied are actually qualified, intelligent, but still the passing rates are very low, it means that we are using too much difficult types of test or too many confusing types of test which does not reveal the true potential of the candidates. So we have to examine the passing rates of the candidates, how well they score, whether they score very high or low, how accurate these tests and interviews are. So each and every aspect of test and interviews and various other stages of the selection procedure needs to be continuously and evaluated to make necessary enhancement or improvement. Now the last part, it is mentioned that fairness. Fairness here means that each and every test and interview and different other methods used in the selection process needs to be fair to everyone. It should not favor someone and it should not discriminate someone. So that needs to be considered while preparing the selection procedure. Okay, so these are the features which are very much essential to make a selection procedure effective. So a good selection procedure must have these kinds of features to make it more and more effective. Okay, so this is the last topic related to selection. In the next session I am going to discuss another portion of selection where I am going to explain what is test and what are the various types of test. Now there are various types of test available, but the types of tests selected by the organization for the selection process actually depends upon the type of job for which they are searching suitable candidates. So in the next session, I am going to explain test and what are the various types of test and how it is used in the organization. So that's it for today. We'll meet in the next session. Thank you.